Okay, so hope my screen is visible to everyone. Is it?
Yes.
Okay. So today, basically, right, we will start with right understanding what Docker networking is, and then right, we will also do a lab, right, to understand right how we can make use of right one of the Docker network right that we understand. So anyone right any idea basically in terms of Docker networking or how many type of networks we have in Docker? Any homework anyone had done?
Deepak, your voice is little low today.
Is it or is it better? Is it a mic problem
Yeah, it is better.
for everyone?
Yes.
Perfect.
Better now.
Okay. Okay, good. So I'm asking, right? You we know, right? Even right, if I'm hosting an application in my say any machine, right? I need a network, right? Without network, I will not able to reach my node and serve right the service that I'm basically giving to the user. That's a straightforward, right? We have seen, right? We have installed Jenkins, we have installed many other, right, services, right? And to access them, obviously, we access them through an IP, right, over which that service is running. So, over internet, when I want to reach, right, my Jenkins, right, service, what I do, I generally hit, right, the Jenkins IP, which is right public IP and our internet when I hit it understand right it is from AWS and it takes me right to my AWS VPC network and right takes me to that particular node and right give me the service. So same fundamentals right would be right around Docker, but there are few things that we have to understand right how right basically in a host right where I'm running my container, how that is going to right basically conceive by user that I'm using the service which is out there, right? So that is what we need to understand. So obviously, we have to first understand this that we have our right host, and when I say host, you can think like of an EC2 instance, right, in which we have installed our Docker engine. So we have our what host here, right? This host,
Sir, sorry for the interruption. Just want to ask you one question.
yeah, please go ahead.
Actually, sir, EC2 इंस्टेंस पर while taking the SSH, जब मैंने ट्राई किया तो कनेक्शन रिफ्यूज्ड दिखा रहा है, तो मैं उसका SSH ही नहीं दिखा रहा हूँ.
ओके आप SSH नहीं होने के मल्टीपल रीजन हो सकते हैं राइट. पहला रीजन हो सकता है आपका नेटवर्क सही है कि नहीं है राइट. अगर नेटवर्क इंटरनेट वगैरह सही है तो सेकंड रीजन हो सकता है जो आप जिस की से कर रहे हो राइट वो की सही नहीं है या उस की को प्रॉपर परमिशन नहीं है. ऑब्वियसली आप जब इंस्टेंस को क्रिएट करते हो तो आपने वो की जनरेट किया होगा राइट एंड यू वुड बी यूजिंग दैट.
Yes,
इज इट?
yes, TPK.
So so now what error that you get, connection refused or what?
Uh, while connecting to SSH, it was trying to connect, but after some time, after 5 or 10 seconds, वो show करता है connection refused.
Connection
So
refused. So the third reason could be is in that machine the security group right 22 port has been allowed or not.
yes, yes, it is allowed.
It is allowed, right? Now can you share your screen so that we can quickly debug and right fix your issue so that you are not stuck. So
Uh,
let me make you host, right? Or make you
I'll just log in and check.
okay, do that. Or let me know, right? Because I have to see, right, how you are doing, right, how you are connecting, what are the keys, and then only, right, we will able to mitigate or solve that issue. Do you need me to make you host?
No, no, just not now, but अभी मैं थोड़ी देर से लॉग इन करता हूँ. फिर आपको एक्चुअली वो यूजर का है एक्चुअली.
Okay. So
मैं ट्राई.
basically, that's what I want to understand. How you are trying to log in, right? And what keys you are using, what user you are using, right? So we have to debug at certain level. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Okay, then I will continue, Rajiv. When right you want at the later of the session also we can right look into it. Okay,
Yes, sir. Sure.
okay, okay. Now, See, this is our instance, right? And instance, basically, you can see, right, is a host, and obviously, it would have its own, right, network interface, a physical network. If we talk about bare metal machine, obviously there is a physical network, or obviously there would be network, right? In case of this virtual machine, right? We have something called, we can say it is H0, right? And obviously it has its own, you can say, network namespace in which, right, an IP is allocated, right? So in our case, right, we have both public IP and, right, private IP allocated, and it's part of, right, a network, right, a VPC, right, which is part of a certain CIDR in which, right, we got the IP. So if you see from the AWS console, right, and if you go to our VPC, so obviously whether it's on-prem, right, we would have a network, and we had specified that we will, right, use this, right, range of IP to, right, get our machines, right, allocated, right, IP, and in that range, right, we are getting, right, IP. So I just want to show you, because that is important. Similar way, right, we have our Docker network, right, and in Docker network also we generally, right, have our subnets defined, right, and as per that they are also getting what, their IPs. Mm. Just give me 1 minute to log in into it. So if I go to this VPC, that is our, right, default VPC that we use generally, and see, this is what the range, right? I go to this diagram, right, and basically, if I click here, so obviously it will get an IP, right, from this particular range, right, which is defined in the VPC. So if I fall in a particular, entire CIDR will be broken down into certain subnet, and I will get, right, I will be part of one subnet, and from that subnet I will get, right, IP of this particular instance. And if I see, right, the private IP of this instance, if I go to my services EC2 instance, okay, and here if I select it, I can see, right, it is getting the IP from this particular, right, defined VPC network. There would be subnet inside that. I'm getting this IP, right, in 170.31 range. So this is what, right, my private address, private IP address for this particular host. And obviously from the you can say public IP pool, I have been allocated one public IP also, which, right, is also used, right, to communicate. So this is what I would say. So I just want to give you some details, right, so that you can segregate, right, how a Docker network is different than this network, right, in which our instances are spinned up. Okay. Now, when you install Docker engine, so by default, the network called bridge is placed, right, and that bridge network is a default network. So if I log in into my instance that we have running, in which we have installed Docker, it has this IP. Okay, and I will copy this IP, and I have taken a Ubuntu machine.
And Deepak, for our
Mhm.
public IP address, it will not come from any subnet because it is created randomly, right?
Obviously, it is right, a pool of public IP. From that, it will be allocated,
And
but it has a relationship, right, with your private network. So
yeah, yeah,
association is there. Okay,
yes. And if you want to permanent public IP, then it should be elastic IP. Is
correct.
it right?
Yeah, yeah. So elastic IP is your dedicated IP, right? Public IP is allocated to your, right, instance. Okay, but you will get charged for that, right, if you are not using it. Okay. So in that way
So
you will
that
get.
means we need to attach to that instance, no? We are
Obviously,
attached.
you can attach, right, basically an EIP to the particular instance. So first you have to, right, enable that you want to use EIP, right? And if you want to say that I want this range, this number of, right, EIPs, and that EIP can be attached, right, to a particular instance. Okay, so basically while creating your instance, you had a choice, right, to use an Elastic, right,
Yes.
IPO. Okay. Now, so we have Docker installed right here, and there is a command, right, called Docker network, generally used to, right, work with, right, a Docker network. So if I do Docker network ls, you will see, right, there are three type of networks it is displaying in the community edition. So one is bridge, right, the host and none. And if you see, right, in actual world, right, there are five, you can say networks, or you can say drivers. So bridge, host, null, we are seeing, right, this is the name which is of, right, this. Then there is an overlay, right, and there is an MAC-VLAN, right. They have their own purpose and meaning that I'm going to, right, show you. Now let's first start with the bridge network. Okay. Now how basically, right, it is. Okay. Now in my this network I have a Docker engine installed, and therefore since I have installed Docker engine, I get, right, one of the network driver installed, right, which is the default one is what, bridge. So this Docker 0, right, is a, right, bridge network, right, that has been, right, created. Now I can have multiple containers running in this, right, instance, right. So I can have multiple containers running at this instance. So I have, so we know, right, how to launch, right, container. So we need an image, right, and when we run it, right, we actually are running containers inside it. So these are now similar, like we have, right, our network space. Similarly, Docker also have its network space. So by default, whatever the bridge network that you are using, right, this Docker 0, which is by default using which network driver, bridge network driver, has its own, right, basically CIDR defined, and the default CIDR which is defined is what, this one, 172.17.0.0/16. Now whatever the IPs, right, that this container will get, right, from this particular range. So your Docker 0 will act as a gateway also, right. So the very first IP, right, that is 0.1, right, will be allocated to this Docker 0, right, this bridge network. Now as a user, right, I want to access, right, a web server which is deployed, right, in this container. So obviously we have, right, a web server in each of this container, right, running on port, say 5000, just just for example, right. So controls had happened, I copied this.
So Deepak, this Docker bridge called Docker 0.
Obviously this is a Docker network like H0, right. This is a
Yeah.
Docker 0.
Okay.
And similarly, right, which is acting as a what, kind of a routing, right. So whatever request, right, obviously user will always know the node, right, the actual node, that is your instance, that is your
Yes.
EC2 instance,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So obviously you will reach, right, somehow passing your firewalls like NECL security gateway, right. So whatever, right, firewalls there in organization, if you are allowed, you will reach this particular host, right. And at the end you are trying to access a web server which is running inside container, not running on your, right, instance. So obviously every right instance, right, by default, right, at kernel level have something called net filter. So net filters are what? These are basically net filter. When I'm saying, you can think about the IP table, right, which is defined in your right instance, right? So IP tables are there. Everyone knows about IP tables, right? It's a kind of a right routing defined, right? If something right is requested from this IP on this particular port, it is mapped right to a particular IP right on a particular right port. So I will route to that basically. So obviously between this, it's 0 and Docker 0, there is a connectivity because Docker bridge has created right that kind of right communication between them. So it's 0 knows Docker 0, and right whatever request comes, basically it gets in a way from the Docker 0, right? It will be right read, right? It's 0 से आया, नेट फिल्टर में देखा, ओके ये रिक्वेस्ट इसके लिए, तो इसको जो आईपी मिलना चाहिए राइट, इसके वेब सर्वर्स जो कंटेनर्स के आईपी है, वो यहाँ पे मैप्ड होंगे किसके साथ? योर योर इंस्टेंस आईपी राइट, विद वॉट एवर पोर्ट इन विच यू आर हिटिंग, एंड basically to reach which container to hit right where the web server is. So this is one thing which is very important to understand. So in a context right, we generally call right, we do port mapping right, and we do volume mapping, right? So these are nothing but you are sharing information that any request which will come on right this instance over certain port. For example, I have open port of this EC2 instance. मैंने इस EC2 instance का एक port open किया हुआ है, से 3000 पोर्ट मैंने ओपन किया होगा, ठीक है? तो यूजर को मैंने 3000 पोर्ट बोला है कि तुम हिट करना 3000 पोर्ट पे, बट यहाँ पे एक्चुअल वेब सर्वर सर्विस किस पे रन हो रहा है? 5000 पे। तो मैं ये बोलूंगा कि यूजर would be hitting to access my service right like this. So whatever the public IP, since our internet we are accessing public IP of right my instance, colon port 300. So obviously when it will hit right on port 3000, it will look for a service which is running in instance, right, 3000 port. But there is nothing right which is running in right this particular right port. So actually I want to reach to right one of the web server to access the service which is running on 5000 port. Give me 1 minute, guys. There is a noise that I need to stop. Okay, I'm back. Now I was saying right कि 3000 पोर्ट पे अगर एक्सेस कर रहा है यूजर, तो ऑब्वियसली assumption तो यही है कि राइट 3000 पोर्ट पे कोई सर्विस इस इंस्टेंस पे कर रहा है, बट मैंने लिसन करने के लिए वो पोर्ट ओपन किया हुआ है, एंड एक्चुअली आई वांट टू एक्सेस अ वेब सर्वर व्हिच इज रनिंग ऑन दिस. So I need to tell right Docker 0 that right I have a request which is coming in 3000. I want to route to right a web server on run. So I need to do what? A port mapping. And in Docker, the
Deepak,
port mapping is
sorry to interrupt you, but Ashwani is trying to,
waiting.
yeah, he's
Okay, yeah.
waiting.
Thank you, Sonia. So I had added him. Now, generally this port mapping happens right in Docker command when you will run right your image right, and you want to reach to web server, a specific right a container right which is running a web server. So you generally use a port mapping in which what you do, you use a flag called -p and give your host port colon what, your target port or container port. Okay, so obviously if I say that in our case right now, the host port is what, 3000 right, and container port is 5000. So I will write like -p 3000 colon 5000. So any request right which is coming right on 3000 port right through a Docker 0 right, it will understand, okay, if a request is coming 3000 port, it is meant for to reach to a container right port which is running on right a particular web server 5000 port. Now this Docker 0 is connected to all these right containers which are running right in right isolation using their virtual right network. So there would be a virtual it right for all this web server through which right it is also connected to them right through the Docker network. See, like this set. And remember, each of them right have their own IP. Each container have their own IP. So obviously they have their own network.
हाँ भाभी नमस्ते, शिवानी बोल रहा हूँ।
Just give me one second.
हाँ दादा, थोड़ा सा बाहर आया था काम से।
Okay. Now, I told you right, the IP will get right to this web server from the range of 172.17. Obviously, each one have their own IP space like 172.17.0.2, right? And it would have 3, 4, 5, right? In that way, they have their own right network space. And when user hits, right, obviously through this Docker Zero network, it will reach one of the web server and right try to give you the service which is running right in the web server. So in that way, right, right, you can access and you can see, right, you can run multiple web server right on the same port, right, without worrying about right whether they will conflict or not, because they are running in on their own network space, right? Even if there is a service, right, say for example I install Jenkins in right my this EC2 instance. So I will take this diagram. So this Jenkins is not a container, first of all, right? It is a service. So it is a service which is running in the instance, and this service is a Jenkins. And say इस Jenkins को मैंने configure किया है run करने के लिए port 5000 पे, ठीक है? तो अगर यूजर यहाँ पे पब्लिक आईपी 5000 पोर्ट पे हिट करेगा तो इट विल राइट यूज दिस सर्विस जेंकिंस, राइट? अब मेरे को जेंकिंस का सर्विस मिलेगा, मेरे को कोई वेब सर्वर नहीं मिलेगा। अगर मुझे वेब सर्वर एक्सेस करना है तो मैं 3000 पे, क्योंकि मैंने मैप किया हुआ है 3000 को किसके साथ, कंटेनर पोर्ट के साथ। बट अगर मैं बोलूँ 5000 पोर्ट को मैं मैप करूंगा 5000 के साथ, तो मेरा डॉकर कमांड रन करने आएगा, बोलेगा पोर्ट ऑलरेडी इन यूज, ऑलरेडी जेंकिन यूजिंग 5000 पोर्ट एज अ होस्ट पोर्ट व्हिच इज नॉट फ्री, either free this port, then only through 5000 port I will take you to the container port 5000 or container service. You are getting my point, what I mean to say, guys?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this is what right basically a bridge network does. It's working as a bridge, right? You can think like when you install a virtual box of VMware, and right you basically want to share internet, right? So you enable right a bridge network so that the network internet traffic right can be accessed right in your you can say the guest OS that you are right installing this virtual box. So you enable right bridge networking, so traffic can right reach to that case OS that you define. In similar way, right, this is defined, right, this bridging network is helping, but remember it is working on a single instance for multiple containers. Now there would be situation where there would be right multiple instances with multiple containers running in it. Then how basically you will right communicate? So bridge network would not be helpful in that case. So in that case, right, overlay network will come in picture. Okay, so I will come to that right overlay network later. Now what is hosted network then, right? This is bridge network, and we have seen right when we run the docker network ls command, there is something called host network also, right? This is for the host. Any idea? So obviously there is nothing called docker bridge. I'm using the host network only to right connect to my बेसिकली कंटेनर। तो जो होस्ट पे जो है वही मेरा राइट बेसिकली कंटेनर पे कम्युनिकेट करेगा। आई विल नॉट राउट इट थ्रू राइट ब्रिज नेटवर्क। सो इन दिस केस राइट, इन केस ऑफ होस्ट नेटवर्क, right, simple, right, this H0 would be directly talking to right this particular web server. Now I cannot run multiple web server on same port if I'm using the Docker network, which is a hosted network. So I am creating a container, but it is totally depending upon the host network and using host network. Even to hit to that network, I'm using the IP of the host to reach that particular service which is running on 5000 port. So I cannot run multiple port, and I cannot run same port on multiple container in case when I'm using hosted network. So this is obviously if I have to contain the application in a single container I have to run, I may use host network. But if I have multiple containers to run workloads, then I have to move to what? Bridge network. I hope you understand what is a host network. I'm using host network space to communicate to container. Is it clear?
So the IP will be
IP will be same of
same,
what of the
and
host, in that way I will
multiple
be able.
ports.
Yes.
Yeah, multiple ports can be used for
Yeah,
different
port
services.
mapping would be there, for
Mhm.
sure, but IP would be same to hit to that particular container, and it is very seldom used, why will I will do that, if I want a containerized microservice architecture to be run, so I will have multiple workloads and multiple container running on a same instance. So generally you will see bridge or overlay network would be widely used.
But
Okay,
in a host network, we can launch multiple container also, no?
we can write multiple container, but they should be run on different port, not on the same port.
Yeah, yeah, ports will be different, but we can launch multiple
We can
containers.
launch, yes, and each
Yeah.
those are hosted containers basically. Okay, act as a hosted container. Got it?
Okay. Instead of bridge container,
Hmm.
it's a hosted container. Okay.
Yeah.
One more question, Deepak. So if we have multiple bridge network, then it will call Docker 1, Docker 2, something like that.
See, for example, I can create multiple bridge network as per my need, so I can name it. So default it would be Docker 0, right? If I want to create my on say bridge network, then I will use the Docker network command to create this. So generally the command would be like this, and it is you to name what you want to name. So क्या आ जाएगा इसका? Why? Yeah. So it would be like Docker network create -d, that is driver, and the driver name I want to use is bridge, and then I can give the name of my bridge network. So I can give Docker by default Docker 0 is there, I cannot use Docker 0, so I can give Docker 1 or whatever I can give, my bridge network or whatever, what you want to. So in that way, you can create multiple bridge network in the same host,
Okay.
right? But
So
while running your container, you have to attach that container to what? Your created
bridge
bridge network. Got it? Hmm.
network.
Your voice
Yeah,
is
yeah. So
breaking.
we needed to find some of the parameters while
Uh,
create.
yes.
Yeah, yeah,
So basically, your voice is breaking. So
yes.
what?
Uh,
But you understood, right? Hello.
okay.
Any questions for the question? Because I am not able to. Have you got the point which I want to pass in terms of multiple bridge
Yes,
network?
Deepak, I understand.
Great.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
और दीपक एक क्वेश्चन था
Hmm.
कि जैसे आपने बोला कि जिस टाइम पे अगर सपोज हमने होस्टेड नेटवर्क अगर यहाँ पे यूज किया तो हम मल्टीपल कंटेनर वहाँ पे क्रिएट कर सकते हैं बट इट शुड हैव डिफरेंट पोर्ट राइट
See, isolation in terms of network is done, right? And if you are using multiple bridge network and mapping is done, right? And I want to use same port, in different bridge network, I can use it, right? But I have to specify, through which bridge network you want to talk. समझ रहे हो मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ? आपके दो ब्रिज नेटवर्क तो अलग अलग हो गए ना, और उस ब्रिज नेटवर्क के साथ क्या अटैच है? कंटेनर अटैच है। तो अब मैं अगर माई ब्रिज के साथ वाले कंटेनर को एक्सेस करना चाहता हूँ और उसका पोर्ट अगर सेम है डॉकर 0 के नेटवर्क के कंटेनर के साथ, तो ऑब्वियसली जब मैं हिट कर रहा हूँ राइट, और जब मैं कहते कंटेनर इनेबल कर रहा हूँ, तो मैं उसे बोलूंगा कि किस ब्रिज नेटवर्क पे आप जाके राइट कनेक्ट करो उस एक्सेस को। तो ऑब्वियसली सेम पोर्ट रख सकते हैं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, ठीक है। तो इट विल बी एबल टू यूज दैट, ठीक है।
नहीं दीपक, मैं होस्टेड नेटवर्क के बारे में पूछ रहा था मैं।
हाँ, होस्टेड नेटवर्क में क्या पूछ रहे थे?
मैं बोल रहा था कि जैसे कि आपने बोला कि होस्टेड नेटवर्क अगर हम यूज करते हैं तो उसमें हम अगर डिफरेंट कंटेनर अगर यूज करते हैं, मल्टीपल कंटेनर अगर यूज करते हैं, तो हमारा कोड जो है सेम नहीं रहेगा, तो डिफरेंट रहेगा, राइट?
उसमें नहीं रह सकता, सेम नहीं रख सकते। ऑब्वियसली यू आर डायरेक्टली हिटिंग ना। और अगर आपका 5000 पोर्ट ओपन है होस्ट का, राइट, when you want to reach right to 5000 port, obviously right it will try to reach only इतने। तो दूसरा पोर्ट अगर आप सर्विस स्टार्ट करने जाओगे तो बोलेगा इस पोर्ट इज ऑलरेडी इन यूज, बिकॉज आप होस्ट का राइट एंटिटी यूज कर रहे हो डायरेक्टली, आप मैपिंग नहीं कर रहे हो वहाँ पे। ब्रिज पे आप मैपिंग कर सकते हो, ठीक है।
ओके।
दीपक, एक क्वेश्चन था, ये जो डॉकर 0 है, जो नेटवर्क का नाम है, वो हमको इंस्पेक्ट लॉग्स में दिखता है क्या कहीं सर?
यस यस, अपने आप अगर जब भी ये डॉकर इंस्पेक्ट कंटेनर करोगे तो आपको ये पता चलेगा कि ये कौन सा ब्रिज नेटवर्क यूज कर रहा है, उसके डिटेल्स
नेटवर्क,
होंगे उसमें। और दूसरा कमांड है डॉकर नेटवर्क इंस्पेक्ट, ओके।
ओके
So if you do Docker network inspect, you will get all the details, right?
ओके,
Okay.
या ओके।
So you can use inspect on the network also. Okay. Now fundamentally अभी हमने ब्रिज नेटवर्क के बारे में बात किया, और राइट होस्टेड राइट डॉकर नेटवर्क के बारे में बात किया। देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड नन। नन का मतलब क्या है? देयर इज नो कनेक्शन, राइट। I am launching a container in isolation and there is no network, right, connection. So it is right running its own right network space internally, so it is not accessible from the outside world. That is what none, right. I don't want to expose my container to the outside world, just I want to right run something in right isolation, so I can do something out there. You got my point?
So what is the use for that container?
Maybe I right want to create an environment in which I right doing something or checking something, maybe, right. I'm not right using it as a workload, right, as a service to right outside user,
So this
just for
container
my
can be,
purpose.
yes, so this
Something
container can be,
something like your laptop, right, when it is not connected to internet.
okay, so this container can be used connected via host network only, host Docker,
No, there is no
Docker
connection,
host.
even there is no connection with the host also. So obviously you will do what? You will just log into your instance and see right there's a container and you are connecting to it. If it is connected through the host, right, maybe outside world can also right connect right to it from the host. So
Yes, and
there is no network, right, right, or interface between your even the virtual machine with that right container machine.
no, even we can the the host which we have creating that container, we can
Mhm.
access that container, yeah, from the Docker
Obviously we
host.
can access right in a physical space, you can say, right, we can access,
Mm-hmm.
but not
Mm-hmm.
in the network space.
Network space. Okay.
Physical space you
Okay,
mean,
out
right,
of,
I can use memory and right disk right of my
yeah,
instance to do certain things,
yeah.
right. But the connection using the network interface of right your virtual machine to that container is not there, right. There is no network right connection between them.
And any specific use case for this kind of
I
network?
told you, right, simple, right. For example, see, if your laptop, right, which is a machine hardware, right, and it is not connected to the outside world, so what you are using for? You may use right to watch a downloaded right movie, right. आप सिर्फ मूवी देख रहे हो उसमें या कुछ देख रहे हो।
Okay.
दूसरा तरीका ये सोच सकते हो कि मैं अपना खुद का कुछ डेवलपमेंट कर रहा हूँ, राइट, एंड आई डोंट वांट एनीवन टू राइट गेट right through the network access to those, right. I just want to run something and check there in the container itself, or maybe right I am setting up one environment in which I am storing something or looking right maybe right I am doing some sort of development or some sort of right uh, you can say research, maybe, right, I would rather say.
Okay. Okay. And by a same command, we can create this kind of
Yes,
bridge, yeah?
yes,
Docker
yes.
network
Yeah,
create.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Got it.
obviously, what happens? I will first maybe launch a container and then remove it from the network space. Right, in that way I can do. Or locally I have and I will remove a bridge network. Right, Docker RM.
So,
Right, Docker network RM and the
okay, so
bridge
for
net.
first create, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. So there's no such kind of network exists. Yeah, no, it's
Correct.
null
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, we
Yeah.
just create a, container, then remove the network.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So obviously,
And
then only then only you will come into that space.
okay,
Right,
okay,
or
yeah,
maybe while setting up your while installing, you did what you downloaded whatever image you want, and after that
yeah,
you removed everything
yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yes, yes.
now coming to overlay network. So basically overlay network uses VXLAN. Have you heard about VXLAN, guys? Virtual extendable, extensible, local area network, right? That is VXLAN. So obviously it needs VXLAN in terms of what? Because see, if we see when default bridge network is created, it gets it on CIDR, through which it can allocate IP to the containers, right? But what happens if I have multiple instances running containers, and obviously by default that bridging would be there. uh, so the bridge network would be there. The default network, which is Docker 0. And say I want to connect from this web server to say some MySQL server running here, or database running in another machine. So I want to have that communication. So how I will that? So first of all, I need all this containers should be in the same network space. So obviously there would be what? An overlay network, right? Which is nothing but an overlay network. It would have its own again CIDR, through which the right IP would be allocated. You can give your custom CIDR also, for example, say 172.17.0.0 in this case, right? And all this physical in or network interfaces are in connect with this overlay network. And see, this is a Docker overlay network, right? So I am putting it in an outer space. Don't think it is outer, it is inside, right? So this overlay network is specifying that this range of IP can be allocated to the cluster of nodes, which are part of particular network in which these virtual machines are there. And in that, I can have my container IPs from this particular range. And in that way, each containers in different hosts are able to communicate with each other. And this is where the overlay, the virtual extensible LAN concept comes. So obviously user would be requesting in normal way, it will be either hitting a node or either hitting a load balancer, which sits out in your network, which is provided by you or the cloud provider, then load balancer they have hit karo. Load balancer will calculate, okay, this particular request is for this set of nodes which are attached to my load balancer, so I will reach one of them, and through this overlay network this particular containers would be able to communicate with this particular node. In that way you will be able to communicate with them. So you got my point, right? So obviously they use the concept of you can say container network model with called lib network. And that lib network is nothing but that's what I talking about net filters, right, which are specified in each worker machine, and as per your port or hit, right, it will try to understand, right, where to reach. So obviously मैंने वेब सर्वर पे हिट किया पहले तो, राइट, थ्रो लोड बैलेंसर मैं हिट हुआ, राइट, वन ऑफ द वर्कर नोड जहाँ पे ये वेब सर्वर चल रहा है, और वेब सर्वर जो भी है, राइट, वहाँ पे जब मैंने हिट किया तो इट नीड्स टू टॉक टू database. Obviously since they are in the same overlay network space, through this overlay network space, right, through this net filter routing, it will understand, okay, this database in some other node, so it will go and try to hit, right, that particular node, and through that node it will, right, reach to that database. In that way, right, this communication happens in case of overlay network. Okay, and if you see, right, if this kind of structure comes, right, we need some kind of, right, container management platform. Either I will go for Docker Swarm or Kubernetes, and Docker Swarm is not that cool, right, compared to Kubernetes. So people will use what? Kubernetes, right, with any runtime like Docker, right? This or the concept would be, right, entirely same. So I can attach how, right, this, say for example I launch this container database, but it should be part of overlay network, right? So obviously I will create an overlay network using Docker network create, right, minus d driver, that is overlay, and then, right, I can say the subnet of this overlay network is this, and this should be attachable, right? I can, right, all use all these options. And after that, right, when I will launch this container at the runtime, I will say this container while running should be part of this overlay network. So if it is in different machines, still I am, right, making it part of the overlay network that I have created, right? So obviously all these nodes are a part of a particular, right, overlay network, and therefore they are able to, right, identify them. I hope this make some, right, understanding in terms of how, right, network thing are there in not, right, Docker. Is it clear, guys? Overlay network.
Yeah. Deepak, one question. So we can remove Docker zero bridge, yeah?
So it would be there, right? See, the bridging, right, will never, right, hampers you, right, because this overlay
Yes.
network is, right, using this Docker zero network to communicate with, right, other, right, containers within that. So it would be there, right? Overlay network will be, right, using, right, this bridge network in some of the cases. If it is not there, still, right, it is able to communicate with the container.
Okay. No, means I'm asking if there is not required the overlay network, so we can remove the Docker zero also, yeah,
Yes, yes,
from
yes,
container in
correct.
general. Okay. And this overlay network we created on which of the host?
Which one?
This overlay network.
So it will be general created. It will be created in one of the, right, cluster nodes, right? What you can call it a master node, right? Whatever, right? Say for example, I installed a Docker runtime would be needed in each and every node, correct? Obviously, to launch a
Yeah.
container, right, it would be, right, installed. But I can choose one of the instance where I will create this overlay network from that cluster. Okay, I can create my overlay network in one of the nodes, right, which will, right, specify or you can say include, right, other, right, node, because they should be part of the same network. अगर मान लो
Yes.
मैंने बनाया है, right, ये कौन सा था हमारा 172.31.0016 पे बनाया, ठीक है, और मैं चाह रहा हूँ कि वो बात करे एक इंस्टेंस है जो कि पार्ट ऑफ डिफरेंट CIDR रेंज है, फॉर एग्जांपल 192.16.0.0/16, right? So obviously it will not able to, right, communicate. Then I have to define some routing, right, to reach to that network. Then only I will reach, right, that instance. Else it will not, overlay network will not work out there.
So CIDR range, I think, will be
Yes,
same.
yes, yeah,
Will-
yeah. So this should be all the right host would be part of the same network and part of the same subnet,
Okay.
right?
Same subnet and okay, inside the VPC same subnet.
Correct. Then only, right, obviously there could be subnet could be specified in
Yeah.
different purpose also, ना, एक private
Yes.
है,
Yes.
public facing है, तो वो भी, right?
बट अगर दो सबनेट हुए, दोनों पब्लिक रहे, तो उनके बीच में कनेक्टिविटी के लिए रहेगा क्या ये
बिल्कुल
overlay
बिल्कुल,
network?
yes, it would be. अगर दोनों public हैं, right, तो
Mhm.
obviously they are on the same IP space, ना,
Yes.
network space तो same है, तो obviously they will able to communicate.
बट अगर डिफरेंट VPC रहे तो ये चलेगा
नहीं
क्या?
होगा, नहीं.
ओके.
Then you have to, right, define certain kind of routing, right? और आपको transit gateway या peering VPC endpoint इस तरह की चीजें आपको use करने पड़ेंगे.
ओके बट
कि वहाँ पे आप अपना राइट राउट कर पाए ट्रैफिक को, तभी वो उस मशीन से बात कर पाएगा और तभी वो उस कंटेनर पे रीच कर पाएगा, करेक्ट?
या गॉट इट.
So basically, this is right the overlay network thing, right, which works, and there is something called MAC-VLAN. So anyone aware what is MAC-VLAN? If I try to make you understand in a very simple way, right? Have you used local internet provider broadband earlier? So when you take a connection, say they say that right in your right connection, we can only provide two laptops, right, to be connected to internet. So you have to give us the MAC address of your laptop, correct? And they configure the MAC address in there, right? Whatever router or whatever right device they have, वहाँ पे वो रजिस्टर करते हैं आपके लैपटॉप का, तो आपके दो लैपटॉप के अलावा और कोई तीसरा लैपटॉप इंटरनेट एक्सेस नहीं कर पाएगा। सुना है ऐसा?
हाँ, मैक फिजिकल एड्रेस ऑफिसेस में भी हम वैसे ही करते हैं।
हाँ, in same way, right, in MAC-VLAN, right, you can connect to a particular right container. So this container have their MAC addresses also, right? Each container have their MAC address, and you have to right share this MAC address right to basically the network, right, which is there. It's zero. So you have to with physical you have to map the MAC address through which you want to communicate of the container. So you have to give the MAC address. So MAC address of container of particular LAN, right? Local area network में जितने भी बने हैं, right? उनका तो MAC address of container. तो जिस कंटेनर के आपने राइट H0 के साथ MAC एड्रेस राइट बाइंड किए हुए हैं, those container only will able to right communicate. Rest all will not able to communicate. जैसे मैंने सिर्फ इस का मैंने किया है, फॉरगेट अबाउट डॉकर जीरो, राइट? डॉकर जीरो यूज ही नहीं हो रहा है, सिर्फ राइट मैकवी लाइन यूज हो रहा है। तो मैकवी लाइन में मैंने इस कंटेनर का मैक एड्रेस इसके साथ बाइंड कर दिया, सो एनी रिक्वेस्ट विल कम टू दिस, राइट, विल डायरेक्टली गो टू दैट ओनली कंटेनर। दैट इज हाउ राइट द मैकवी लाइन राइट नेटवर्क ऑफ डॉकर इज यूज्ड। इज दिस क्लियर? हेलो?
ओके,
मतलब
डॉकर
क्या
जीरो
है, मतलब फिजिकल जो फिजिकल एड्रेस क्या बोलते हैं, जो मशीन एड्रेस है ना, उसके थ्रू मैं कम्युनिकेट कर रहा हूँ, रेदर देन मैं नेट फिल्टर यूज करके राउट कर रहा हूँ अपने ट्रैफिक को राइट पर्टिकुलर कंटेनर पे, है ना। डॉकर जीरो जैसे ब्रिज करके कर रहा हूँ, मैं ब्रिज यूज ही नहीं कर रहा, मैं डायरेक्टली क्या कर रहा हूँ, मेरे को पता है कि कौन से कंटेनर पे जाना है, मैं उसका मैक एड्रेस बाइंड कर दिया है। तो अगर रिक्वेस्ट मेरे 80 पे आई और राइट जो मेरा मैक एड्रेस बाइंडेड है वहाँ पे वो सर्विस रन हो रहा है, मैं वहाँ पे रीच करूंगा। That's it.
ओके,
ठीक है,
बाकी कोई नेटवर्क यूज ही नहीं हो रहा डायरेक्टली
नहीं,
मैक
हाँ,
मैक
यस,
वीलैन.
मैकविलाइन यूज हो रहा है,
आई
ठीक
थिंक इस केस में भी ओवरले नेटवर्क भी यूज कर सकते हैं अलोंग विद मैक
है।
मैक
यस,
वीलैन.
मतलब यू कैन राइट मिक्स एंड राइट मैच कर सकते हो। अगर आपको नहीं यूज करना है, देन यू कैन हैव अ स्पेसिफिक राइट मैकविलाइन वे ऑफ राइट एक्सेसिंग द सर्विसेज। See, I told you right, you can have multiple network defined right in a particular host. आप ब्रिज नेटवर्क भी क्रिएट कर सकते हो, आप ओवरले नेटवर्क भी क्रिएट कर सकते हो, राइट, और अपने अलग अलग राइट आईपी रेंजेस के हिसाब से कर सकते हो, तो दैट इज पॉसिबल ना। Okay, now today what the lab that we are going to do is right a typical Ingress connection, in which right we would have one of the container which is running right a web server, and we will try to do a port mapping and right volume mapping, so that if a user want to access that web server, right, so I will be hitting on the port opened right for the host, right, and in my right container it would be running in a different port. For example, I am going to launch an nginx web server right in one of the container, and which is running on port 80, but I will be accessing that nginx server which is running on port 80 from the host port called say 8090 or 8091 or whatever I want to configure. So we will be understanding that and how the run command would be there, right, and how, I will also give you some information, right, how you will be right saying right what network you want to use, right. So all that can be right understand using that lab, and you can further extend right that lab with creating your own bridge network and right launching and connecting to that container. So in that way right you have to grow basically. So are we good to go with that lab, guys? or you have some questions?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. So okay, let me first take you to my Docker demo repository, which you can use. Yeah, GitHub. So I will be cloning that, right? And then basically कुछ मैं कोई कोड लेके नहीं आ रहा हूँ, बस मेरे को एक Nginx का राइट index.html फाइल चाहिए जो कि मुझे वॉल्यूम मैप करना है. तो वो है, उसमें हम कुछ भी चेंज करेंगे एंड राइट वी विल सी राइट वी कैन सिंपली राइट रोल आवर deployment, right? When once right it is running and runtime, I can right change some content and right show you. So that's what I want to actually show you. Why GitHub is taking so much of time? Is my network slow? There's a Docker demo. I will be cloning this. Okay. So let's git clone. So now I have a folder called Docker demo examples, and there's all engines. Okay, so nothing, right? There is one index.html file, and here we are going to run an image called right Nginx latest, right? And we will be doing port mapping, right? And we will be right using right port, right, which is not in use. If right I use a port which is in use, and we will see right what problem. So I will be creating those problems also, and right we'll understand from that right how we can right make that instance also run, right? So for example, currently in this system, right, if I do sudo netstat minus nap pipe crap et, so I have to install sudo apt install nettool to use netstat command. Okay, and then I grab 80. So I see someone right is trying to access something right on port 18 some other instance. It is a multi-tenant, maybe right. That's what the reason, right? Someone is hitting, but and not any service right is running on right this right machine as a port 80. So obviously I can do one thing. I can also search like Apache 2, right, which runs on port 80 by default. So I will install that. So I will make port 80 already in use, right? So let me do sudo apt right install Apache 2.
And Deepak, which kind of network we are using in our lab?
Default network, that is bridge.
Okay.
Okay. So now if I grab port 80, we can see right our instance right is using port 80, which is in listen state, and right Apache 2 is running on that. Okay, and our Nginx default port is also right 80. Now I will be right opening my lab document. Not here, not here. Downloads, learning, Docker, lab 2. So here, this is the command that I'm going to run, right? Now tell me, anyone, right? Anyone explain me this command? Anyone who want to try can go ahead.
So just what am I doing something with volumes, yeah, in the Docker, with the present working directory, and yeah, sharing some volume, yeah, with the container and the Docker host and container, yeah.
Okay, so if I say in this way, right? For example, Docker run needs an image, right? Obviously, when I'm using run, I'm running an image, right? So that it will create a process called container, right? And which image I'm using here? Nginx colon latest, the last one, right? This is the image, right? So this image already contains what? Nginx pre-installed in this, right? So whenever it will be launched, it will run a container in which Nginx would be running. True? ये clear हुआ पहले इतना? Hello? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now, a second thing that I would like to understand, right, in terms of understand what this minus D means.
Background.
Background.
Execute the
Obviously, it will keep it running, right, in the
Yeah.
background. So it will.
Yeah.
I want it should be in a running state because it is a web server, so I don't want, right? It should exit. So that is what I wanted to run in the background. And this name is of what? किसका नाम है ये?
Container.
Container.
Container का नाम है. That is also perfect, right? Now minus P I told you, right? It is like uh, specifying
Port
a
name.
routing, right? Our port. So the very first 80 port is of what? किसका है? ये 80 जो पहला 80 पोर्ट है वो किस पे मैं किसके लिए बोल रहा हूँ? ये होस्ट है कि
Container.
कंटेनर पोर्ट?
Container.
Host.
द
Host port.
फर्स्ट वन इज अ होस्ट पोर्ट. जो पहला वाला रहता है कॉलन के पहले वो क्या रहता है? होस्ट पोर्ट. तो इस होस्ट के 80 पोर्ट पे अगर आप हिट करोगे तो मैं रीडायरेक्ट करूंगा आपको कहाँ पे? कंटेनर के 80 पोर्ट पे. ओके, तो ये जो माइनस पी है इज द एक्चुअल राइट मोटिवेटर इन टर्म्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन कि इस जीरो पे अगर 80 पोर्ट पे आया, राइट, मेरे होस्ट पे, आई विल चेक, right, through, right, the net filter, because docker 0 will actually act as what? किस तरह की करे, किस तरह का काम कर रहा है वो? डीएनएस प्रॉक्सी का काम कर रहा है. किसका किस तरह का काम कर रहा है डॉकर जीरो ब्रिज नेटवर्क? एक डीएनएस प्रॉक्सी का काम कर रहा है. वो बोल रहा है ओके ये रिक्वेस्ट तो इस पे आई है बट मैं किस कंटेनर पे जाऊं? तो इट विल गो टू द राइट आईपी टेबल एंड ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कहीं पे कुछ ऐसा मैपिंग डिफाइन किया है क्या कि अगर इस होस्ट के 80 पोर्ट पे आता है तो आई शुड टेक इट टू राइट वन ऑफ द राइट कंटेनर व्हिच आई नो राइट एज अ डीएनएस प्रॉक्सी एंड आई विल राइट रीडायरेक्ट टू दैट पोर्ट. यू गॉट माय पॉइंट गाइस? अभी मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ? हेलो?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
This is what you have to
Yes.
clearly right keep in mind because आप अगर Kubernetes भी right पढ़ोगे तो आपका ये जो बेस नेटवर्किंग कंसेप्ट है, ये जो आप मैं डीएनएस प्रॉक्सी बोल रहा हूँ, डॉकर जीरो को ब्रिज नेटवर्क बोल रहा हूँ या ओवरले नेटवर्क बोल रहा हूँ, ये उसका बेस है वहाँ पे. अगर आपको राइट मोर ऑन द नेटवर्किंग साइड समझना है, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव साइड कोई इशू नहीं है, राइट, कमांड रन करना है, क्रिएट करना है नेटवर्क, राइट, वो सब क्या है, देयर आर सिंपल कमांड विद सर्टेन फ्लैग्स. बट बिहाइंड द सीन क्या हो रहा है वो इम्पोर्टेंट है अगर आपको समझना है. तो ये चीजें ही हैं, ये एंटिटीज हैं, राइट, जैसे कि नेट फिल्टर, राइट, एंड दिस ऑल आर राइट कंटेनर नेटवर्क मॉडल का पार्ट है. जो जब कंटेनर नेटवर्किंग डेफिनेशन स्टार्ट हुआ तो दे हैड क्रिएटेड अ मॉडल इन विच राइट दिस ऑल नेट फिल्टर्स, राइट, lib network which are related to IP tables, right, has come in picture कि किस तरीके से राइट इंटरनल राउटिंग बाय डिफॉल्ट राउटिंग जब हम इंस्टॉल करेंगे तो प्लेस करेंगे और उसको वो एक्सपोज करेगा या यूज करेगा. The minus v flag का काम वही है. Now minus v is related to disk, right? The volume is related to disk. Now as I said, right, these physical resources are shared, right, with container. So I can mount. तो मैं क्या माउंट कर रहा हूँ अभी? मैं अपना फिजिकल वॉल्यूम, राइट, जो करंट वॉल्यूम है कहीं पे एक पाथ है उसको कहाँ पे मैं माउंट कर रहा हूँ? मैं माउंट कर रहा हूँ कंटेनर के यूजर एंजिंग्स के साथ. सो वट एवर आई विल बी डूइंग राइट इन माई करंट डायरेक्टरी वुड बी विजिबल वेयर? इन यूजर शेयर एंजिंग्स. सिमिलरली यूजर शेयर एंजिंग्स में अगर मैं कुछ करूंगा, कुछ डालूंगा, वो कहाँ पे विजिबल होगा? कहाँ पे विजिबल होगा? मेरे सिस्टम पे, बिकॉज मैं सेम वॉल्यूम स्पेस उसके साथ शेयर कर रहा हूँ, माउंट कर रहा हूँ. तो माउंटिंग पता है ना गाइस?
Yes.
डिस्क माउंटिंग
Yes.
माइनस वी को आप यही समझो कि वो क्या है? डिस्क माउंटिंग है, राइट. तो मैंने डिस्क माउंटिंग किया है. अभी यहाँ पे मैंने ये लिखा है डॉलर कर्ली ब्रेसेस. इसका क्या मीनिंग है?
Very. And
मेरे EC2 इंस्टेंस का करंट डायरेक्टरी, उसको एग्जीक्यूट कर रहा हूँ. मेरा पाथ क्या बन रहा है? अगर ये डॉलर यूनिक्स के टर्म इसको बोलते हैं कमांड सब्स्टिट्यूशन. एक्चुअली आई एम एग्जीक्यूटिंग अ कमांड called pwd and pwd will result me what? The current path where I am, right, where I am running this command. So it would be like home ubuntu docker demo example engines, and this path I am mounting right with what? User share engines of container. तो अभी जब मेरा कंटेनर लॉन्च होगा, उसमें एनजिंग्स होगा, तो एनजिंग्स का जो रूट डॉक्यूमेंट होता है वो कहाँ पे होता है? यूजर शेयर एनजिंग्स एचटीएमएल में। जैसे कि आपका जो भी index.html एचटीटीपी के केस में कहाँ जाता है? var www राइट स्लैश एचटीएमएल में जाता है। दैट इज द रूट डॉक्यूमेंट राइट फॉर एचटीटीपीडी सर्वर। और सेम राइट फॉर अपाचे 2। तो एनजिंग्स का क्या होता है? यूजर शेयर एनजिंग्स में उसका एचटीएमएल index.html होता है। बट मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, मैं खुद का index.html ओवरराइट करवा रहा हूँ, जो एनजिंग्स का अपना डिफॉल्ट एचटीएमएल है ना? So this is what I am doing because I had kept in my current directory a HTML file. Is this clear? Hello? Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
And Deepak, one more thing. Here we are using जैसे कि यहाँ पे हम पोर्ट नंबर 80 यूज कर रहे हैं, तो फर्स्ट पोर्ट जो है वो होस्ट का पोर्ट है और सेकंड पोर्ट है वो कंटेनर का पोर्ट है, राइट?
करेक्ट, हाँ
और जो सेकंड वाला जो ब्रिज नेटवर्क पे है, राइट?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल एकदम सही। और यही है बेसिकली राइट। द फर्स्ट पोर्ट इज होस्ट पोर्ट एंड सेकंड पोर्ट इज अ कंटेनर पोर्ट। ठीक है, नाउ लेट मी डू वन थिंग। अभी मैंने अपाचे 2 इंस्टॉल किया हुआ है, करेक्ट? यस और नो गाइस? इंस्टेंस पे। तो अभी ये मेरा राइट इंस्टेंस है, और इसके सिक्योरिटी ग्रुप में अगर मैं जाता हूँ, ठीक है, इसको मैं ओपन करता हूँ अलग टैब में। तो अभी यहाँ पे कौन कौन से पोर्ट ओपन है अगर हम देखें तो? व्हाट हैपेंड, सिक्योरिटी, हाँ कौन सा पोर्ट ओपन है? सिर्फ 22 पोर्ट ओपन है, करेक्ट?
Yes.
इनबाउंड में ऑब्वियसली अगर मैं इस मशीन पे जाके इसका आईपी लेके अगर हिट करूंगा तो मेरे को अपाचे 2 सर्विस भी एक्सेस नहीं होगा अभी तो, है ना?
Yes.
ठीक है, अभी वो उसके लिए भी टाइम आउट मार देगा। तो मेरे को क्या करना पड़ेगा इसको चलाने के लिए? यहाँ पे
TPP
मुझे एडिट इनबाउंड रूल्स में जाके 80 पोर्ट इनेबल करना पड़ेगा, है ना? ये किसका 80 पोर्ट इनेबल कर रहा हूँ, कंटेनर का कि होस्ट का?
होस्ट का।
होस्ट का, करेक्ट। ये होस्ट का है राइट, ऑब्वियसली सिक्योरिटी ग्रुप इज रिलेटेड टू इंस्टेंसेस राइट। तो मैं उसका कर रहा हूँ, तो मैंने यहाँ पे इनेबल कर दिया। नाउ आई एम सेविंग द रूल्स। अभी इतने देर से राइट घूम ही रहा है राइट। अभी मैंने ऐड कर दिया है, तो भी देखो इधर है, तो मेरे को क्या दे रहा है? अपाचे 2 दे रहा है ना? कंटेनर का सर्विस नहीं दे रहा, क्योंकि अभी तक कंटेनर में एनजिंग्स होता है, एनजिंग्स का पेज नहीं दे रहा है, मुझे अपाचे 2 का पेज दे रहा है, करेक्ट? क्लियर? अभी इस पार्ट
Yes.
इतने तक तो हम क्लियर हैं, ठीक है? नाउ आई एम गोइंग टू रन दिस।
सर जो PWD है हाइफन
हाँ
बी, दैट मींस कि वो
मैं एक काम करता हूँ, वो उसको आपको रन करके ही बताता हूँ, सो दैट यू कैन। नाउ आई एम डूइंग इको डॉलर pwd। क्या आउटपुट है?
ये जो पाथ है ये हमारे
इंस्टेंस का है, हाँ
इंस्टेंस का।
होस्ट का है राइट। इसको मैंने माउंट किया है कंटेनर का पाथ। जो सेकंड वाला पाथ है किसका है? कंटेनर का पाथ है, यूजर शेयर एंजिंग सिस्टम। क्योंकि मेरा एंजिंग्स कंटेनर पे है ना, मेरे सिस्टम पे नहीं है, इंस्टेंस पे मैंने एंजिंग इंस्टॉल नहीं किया है। ट्रू?
यस,
Yes.
यही पाथ पे थोड़ा डाउट था इसमें।
हाँ। नाउ अभी मैं इसको रन करके रन करता हूँ, मुझे ये चल जाएगा कि एरर देगा मुझे?
एरर देगा।
ओके, क्या एरर देना चाहिए?
पोर्ट ऑलरेडी इन यूज।
करेक्ट, ये पोर्ट ऑलरेडी इन यूज देगा, क्योंकि अगर आप देखोगे 80 पोर्ट ऑलरेडी राइट अपाचे 2 कंज्यूम कर रहा है, और बेसिकली उसने पुल किया, लेकिन बाद में बोलता है ड्राइवर फेल्ड राइट बिकॉज लिसन टीसीपी 80 बाइंड एड्रेस राइट इज ऑलरेडी इन यूज राइट। नाउ इफ आई डू डॉकर ps -a, यू कैन सी राइट क्रिएट तो हो गया है, स्टेटस क्रिएटेड में है, बट चालू नहीं है ना?
Yes.
Right now let me do one thing. I will use a port which is not in use. तो मैं यहाँ पे डाल देता हूँ 8091, चलेगा? होस्ट पोर्ट मैंने 8091 डाल दिया। मैं इसको रन करता हूँ, अभी क्या होगा?
Execute होगा मतलब
अभी चल
कंटेनर
जाएगा
बन
राइट,
जाएगा।
अप आ जाएगा।
एक्सेसिबल नहीं होगा।
कुछ गड़बड़ किया क्या मैंने? क्या बोल रहे हैं? हाँ
नेम
ये
नेम
ये
नेम ऑफ द
हाँ
कंटेनर।
ये क्यों, हाँ ये एरर आया क्यों? क्योंकि मैंने
टेस्ट।
सेम नाम का किया और ऑलरेडी उसका कंटेनर बना हुआ है राइट। सो आई नीड टू चेंज। चलो मैं एक नया इंस्टेंस बना देता हूँ 1 करके, ठीक है? टेस्ट इंजिन्स 1। अभी देखो मेरा कंटेनर आ गया, आप डॉकर ps -a। ठीक है, अप स्टेट में है ना। बट अगर मैं एक्सेस करूंगा 8091 पे, एक्सेस होगा?
नहीं होगा, सिक्योरिटी ग्रुप में पोर्ट
सिक्योरिटी
होता
ग्रुप में
है।
जाके मेरे को पोर्ट ओपन करना पड़ेगा। तो मैं यहाँ जा गया सिक्योरिटी ग्रुप में, एडिट इनबाउंड रूल्स में गया और 8091 को ऐड कर। अभी यही आईपी उठाता हूँ मैं, और यहाँ पे 8091 पे हिट करता हूँ। तो क्या दे रहा है मुझे, राइट? ये इंडेक्स डॉट एचटीएमएल कहाँ पे है? ये इंडेक्स डॉट एचटीएमएल मेरा ये वाला है, कैट इंडेक्स डॉट एचटीएमएल, जो मैंने माउंट किया हुआ है। ठीक है, तो ऑब्वियसली कंटेनर के अंदर जो इंडेक्स डॉट एचटीएमएल था उसको उसने ओवरराइट किया, कौन सा? जो मैंने वॉल्यूम पे मैप किया है ना। अभी मैं इसमें अगर कुछ भी चेंज करूँ, राइट, इंडेक्स डॉट एचटीएमएल पे, यहाँ पे जो लोरम एप्सम है इसको हम कर देते हैं, इसको हटाते हैं लोरम एप्सम को, और यहाँ बोलते हैं लर्निंग डॉकर। तो पता चल रहा है वॉल्यूम मैप हो रहा है, राइट? जो मैं यहाँ पे चेंज कर रहा हूँ वो कहाँ पे रिफ्लेक्ट हो रहा है? कंटेनर के अंदर के इंडेक्स डॉट एचटीएमएल को अफेक्ट कर रहा है ना। अभी मैंने अपने इंस्टेंस पे चेंज किया, कंटेनर पे चेंज नहीं किया, बट मैंने माउंट किया हुआ है वॉल्यूम। तो ऑब्वियसली अगर मैं अभी इसको वापस से रिफ्रेश करूंगा, सी लर्निंग डॉकर आ गया अभी,
यस।
राइट? तो ऑब्वियसली वॉल्यूम मैपिंग का यूज केस, राइट, इट्स वेरी क्लियर।
दीपक एक बार वो कंटेनर के अंदर जाओ ना आप प्लीज,
कौन से कंटेनर के अंदर?
जो अभी चल रहा है वो।
ओके, डॉकर exec minus it, okay, then my container id, paste, oh my bad, कॉपी करना पड़ेगा। ठीक है, देन
अभी अपने जो फाइल था ना ये सारे शेयर वगैरह,
कौन सा
जहाँ
पाथ?
पे हमने जो हमने वो इंस्टेंस का जो पाथ माउंट किया था वो।
यूजर शेयर engines html है ना। ठीक है, हो रहा है, माउंटेड है, वही चीज इधर दिख रहा है।
और यहाँ पे तो चेंज करो ना, देखो उधर देखते हो।
ओके, इसमें वी होगा क्या, देखते हैं। वी नहीं है, ठीक है, तो इसने मेरे को इंस्टॉल करना पड़ेगा अगर मैं यहाँ पे यूज करूँ। ठीक है, तो sudo apt, ये कौन सा है?
कंटेंट ओवरराइट कर दो ना, तो सिर्फ हमको देखने तो
है,
कंटेंट ऐड कर दो ना अपेंड करके।
हाँ, मैं वी करके ही करना चाहता हूँ।
ओके,
ठीक है, तो यूनिमाइनस क्या है? ubuntu है, राइट? तो
Ubuntu
sudo
apt-get।
apt, राइट, इंस्टॉल वी। sudo नहीं दे रहा है, ओके, यूज भी करने की जरूरत नहीं है, आई थिंक ऑलरेडी रूट है। तो ये इसको पैकेज भी नहीं मिल रहा है, तो अपडेट मारना पड़ेगा पहले, sudo apt update बेसिकली। ओके, एंड नाउ apt install भी है, नहीं दे रहा है ये, मतलब इसके पास उतना कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है, राइट, वी करने का। अगर मैं विम करके देखूँ तो हाँ, विम दे रहा है, माय बैड। एंड देन विम index.html एंड आई से ये हटा देता हूँ। देखो रीड ओनली बोल रहा है ना, तो मैं चेंज नहीं कर सकता इसको। क्यों? अगर मैं इसको सेव करना चाहूँ या एक्सक्लेमेशन लगा के करना चाहूँ तो मैं सेव नहीं कर सकता। क्यों बोलो? क्योंकि मैंने जब कमांड रन किया तो मैंने इसको क्या है, रीड ओनली मोड पे रखा है, तो मैं कंटेनर के अंदर चेंज नहीं करने देना चाहता। ठीक है, कहाँ गया हमारा बाहर आ रहा हूँ मैं इसके, ठीक है। और जो कमांड हमने रन किया था, या फिर से देख लेते हैं हमारे डॉक्यूमेंट से। यहाँ पे क्या रखा मैंने, क्या रखा
रीड
है,
ऑन
रीड ओनली। तो ऑब्वियसली मैं बाहर से ऐड करता हूँ, लेकिन अंदर पे मैं नहीं चाहता कि कोई उसको एडिट करे, तो एक रीड ओनली फाइल रखा है उसको, ठीक है। अगर मुझे रीराइट करना होगा तो क्या रन करके करना पड़ेगा, RW, ठीक है। आई एम गिविंग रीड राइट परमिशन, राइट, द पाथ विच आई हैव
If we
मार्क्ड।
if we didn't give anything, then it will be by default
बाय
read only
डिफॉल्ट
or
रीड ओनली, बाय डिफॉल्ट रीड ओनली,
okay.
ठीक है। बट इट इज गुड
Also
राइट टू स्पेसिफाई द स्पेसिफिक परमिशन, राइट।
okay. And wanted to have execute permission.
Execute permission is not required, right, until unless, right, you are writing a script, right। तो आप
Yeah.
X यूज कर सकते हो, ठीक है,
Okay, but
RWX,
RWX. Okay, got it. Full permission for
full
RWX. Yeah.
permission, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
got it.
okay. So you see, right, means I'm not allowed, right, to change the content, right, inside container. So I'm controlling it from the outside. There is one example in which we will be controlling from inside also। RW वाला भी हमारा एक lab है, right, ठीक है, जो docker file से related है। Then, right, we will see that there the RW permission, ठीक है। So Vishal, your concern is clear, right?
Yes, Deepak.
Okay. Now another thing, right, now अभी तो मेरा ये चल रहा है, राइट, वहां पे मेरा इंग्रेस हो रहा है, राइट, 8091 पे। अभी मुझे 80 पोर्ट पे भी रन करना है, 80 पोर्ट पे भी, राइट, रन हो, यही जो अभी क्रिएटेड स्टेट में है, तो मुझे वो भी रन करना है। अभी तो सब ये अपाचे 2 पे हिट कर रहा है ना, बार बार अगर मैं 80 पोर्ट पे डाल रहा हूँ तो अपाचे 2 पे जा रहा है। मैं चाहता हूँ ये भी एनजिंग्स पे जाए, तो मैं क्या करूँगा, मैं ये करूँगा, सबसे पहले तो उस पोर्ट को फ्री करूँगा। तो मैं sudo सर्विस अपाचे 2 स्टॉप, ठीक है, मेरा 80 पोर्ट फ्री हो गया, yes or no।
Yes.
And then I will do what, sudo not sudo docker ps minus a। तो मेरा जो क्रिएटेड स्टेट में है, इसका जो कंटेनर आईडी है उसको लूंगा, एंड आई विल डू व्हाट, docker start this container id or whatever the container name is, दोनों यूज कर सकते। क्या हो गया, ये कंटेनर भी अप आ गया, अभी देखो अप आ गया, क्योंकि पोर्ट फ्री हो गया, एंड आई कैन यूज, राइट। नाउ इफ आई हिट 80 पोर्ट, नाउ इट विल नॉट गो टू अपाचे, इट विल गो टू
And
nginx।
Janik.
आजा आजा, ठीक है। So now I have two, right, containers, right, running, right, nginx server, right, and they have different, right, port,
And they are using the same volume, yeah, sharing the same volume.
same volume, yeah,
Yeah, it means two containers sharing the same volume on a
same,
host.
yes.
Okay.
So this is an example of, right, an Ingress, right, Docker network using bridge network. Now let's do this. Docker inspect this container ID, any one of them. And you will see, right, the network is what, a bridge network, and in this bridge network, right, these are the details, and we can see the IP of, right, this one is 117, right, .0.2, right। तो हमने 17.x.x के network पे ही वो IP उठा रहा है, right, and we can see, right, the host port and, right, basically the target port, right, which is mapped to this information, right, in the network settings we can see. So how, right, the port mapping has been done, and similarly, right, the path volume, right, source and destination is also mentioned in the mounts, right. And forget this overlay 2, it is written, but it is not an overlay 2 network, it is what, a bridge network. It is using which network, the default network, which is a bridge network, because we have only 3 options right now, right, that is bridge, hosted, and none. And these are the details, right, about basically your network, not network, your container. Now similarly we can do docker network inspect, by default it is docker 0, docker network inspect, right. So we have to give our All right. Network. Docker network. ls, and okay, it is bridge, not so Docker network inspect bridge.
So default name is bridge only, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Zero.
Yeah. Now
Okay.
you can see
But
right.
we called it Docker zero.
Yeah, basically it is a Docker 0, right? This one.
Yeah,
Right?
because
But we have,
yeah,
while inspecting, we have to use the name of right your network. Okay, that is bridge. We can name it anything, right? While creating. Now you can see, right?
yeah,
It has all the details, what it is running, right? IP, right? What subnet it is part of, right? So, right, all the details about that bridge, right? Network would be there. Okay.
yeah,
So this is right what basically right about right Docker networking concept. I would suggest you to go through this if you want to learn more. Right, there is a Docker networking uh, page right in Docker which has right all this thing right that I have explained you. So this networking where networking overview, this page, right, the network/network, and here right you will get the details of all the network drivers like bridge, host, overlay, right, mac, vlan, none, right, and right how they are basically working. So how to use a bridge network, and the network commands right are very straightforward. Always will start with Docker network. To create, it is create. To basically remove rm, right, to detach, attach, right, all those options are there. So basically, if you see, right, this is all the details about, right, now how to, right, create a network, how to remove, right, Docker network, RMI network, Docker network, create my net, right, and so connect to container. Now, okay, so my screen is visible or not?
No.
Okay, let me check.
not now.
Okay, now it is or not.
Yeah, visible.
It is.
Okay, now so I was saying, right, you can go to this network overview page and you can see, right, all the details, right, how to create a network, right, and how to basically, right, right, connect a container to, right, already defined, right, bridge. So आपने अब खुद का एक bridge network define किया. So Docker create, right, dash dash name, right, my nginx, and then you are publishing, right, that is the port mapping p minus p option, right. Instead of minus p, you can also write dash dash publish, or instead of dash dash network, you can also use minus n, right. So obviously you are right actually connecting this particular, right, whatever the running, right, container, right, to what particular, right, bridge network. So in this way you can connect, right. So this is Docker network connect my net to my nginx. So my nginx is your container name. Okay, so this is so it is basically your container name, correct, right. So you are creating to that. My bad. Where is
Yeah,
yeah?
Docker
This is container
create.
name, right? Yeah.
This
Okay.
Docker create command is used for creating a network or
See,
container.
Docker network create is used to create right network. So ऊपर में जो है
Network. Yeah, yeah.
ये है, right?
Okay. For
और जब आप create कर रहे हो और attach कर रहे हो, right? Then generally you can use yeah Docker create
okay,
network.
okay. So
That's
ये Docker create will use to create a network and also creating container.
not a create a network, to attach to a network. तो ये जो
Okay.
कंटेनर है, राइट,
Mm-hmm,
इसको किसके
mm-hmm,
साथ, अभी आपने देखा ना, क्रिएटेड स्टेट में गया था, रनिंग स्टेट में नहीं गया था. जब डॉकर रन करोगे तब रन होगा.
mm-hmm.
क्रिएटेड
Okay.
कंटेनर विल रन व्हेन यू विल स्टार्ट दैट, राइट. तो यहाँ पे आपने सिर्फ क्रिएट किया है कंटेनर,
Okay.
उसको
Okay.
ऑर्केस्ट्रेट नहीं किया है. तो अब लेकिन आपने
Okay.
क्रिएट करते वक्त उसको किसके साथ अटैच कर दिया, आपका जो खुद का
Mainnet.
बनाया हुआ नेटवर्क है
Mm-hmm.
उसके साथ आपने
Yeah.
अटैच कर दिया. And again, port mapping, volume mapping you can do as usual, right? That we use with Docker run. उसके बाद आप इसको Docker run -d background mode पे run करो, right? Whatever. ठीक है?
Okay. Okay.
Now you can also use disconnect, right? To disconnect from container. And IPv6, basically I have not never used, right, for IPv6, but you can use IPv6 attachment and all that also, right? So there's right possible to use IPv6 also. Okay. So basically I would suggest you, right, to go through this, right, whatever we have learned, right, over that you can build more, right, basically in a clear understanding, I would say, rather, right. So अब आप एक दो बार और देखोगे तो आपको पता चलेगा कि हाँ ये डॉकर नेटवर्क में इस तरह से ही मैनेज होता है. Okay, so it will give you right understanding. And to understand right internal flow, then you have to actually go ahead. They do not had mentioned that very clearly right in their documentation, but learn about this container network model. Generally we call it what, CNM, right? So this is what right you have to go through somewhere, right? You have to go and learn what's the difference between CNM and right CNI. CNI is generally used by Kubernetes, but CNM right is general standard practice that Docker has right given. So learn about them, right? CNM, and CNM will give you right basically right good understanding. See this one I would suggest you. So go through it, read about it. So it will give you a clear picture. And rest all is right administrative command purpose. And generally, right, people right who are working in Kubernetes right are generally dealing with right the you can say administrative aspects only. So basically, right, how this container interfaces and network connectivity works. So this is how the load balancing, by default load balancing is there, right, in containers. So just go through this. If you want, I can paste this, right, to the channel. So please copy it and right, go through. It's very good, right, explanation out here. So this will give you, right, how basically the network aspects work, right. So this is what I was talking about, right, zero physical network. So take this, guys. I will paste it here. Okay. So I will be binding up now, and tomorrow we will be understanding Docker file, but not tomorrow. In next session, right? Basically now we do not have right much in terms of Docker, but there are few labs that are pending. That is right, Compose lab. How right two containers right communicate with each other. How we can use Docker Compose to make them communicate. So it is a very specific application example in which we would have a Python server running in a container, which we will be building using Docker file, and we have a Redis right a database. So how they will right interact with each other as an application. So that we have to do. We have to before that we have to understand what is Docker file, and we have to do a specific lab on Docker file. So we'll be creating an image using Docker file, right, which will work as expected. We have instructed right in the Docker file. So this is again one of the lab which is important. And at the end, right, we have to do a lab in which we have to connect to right Docker Hub. We have to right create image, and we have to commit make changes to that right running container, and then right commit that container to create an image and push that image into right a Docker Hub. So we have to understand that aspect also, right, how images are basically pushed right into the registry. So these are the labs that right which are pending that right we have to do right further. Okay, I hope this session, in a way, right, would be very much helpful, basically to getting into right Docker network aspect. But overall, it will also help you in terms of debugging, right? Any issue, right, right, happening in a container, it is not accessible, not reachable, right? So using right not Docker network inspect, you can see right what kind of error or problems are happening out. Okay. Any questions before I close? Hello.
No.
No one? Okay, then do this lab today, right? Practice it. Uh, I will be covering one right discussion right after Kubernetes right on Docker Swarm, so that you can compare, right? So first you have to understand right how basically in an or cluster of containers things are very difficult, right? अगर एक दो container की बात करते हैं तो it's very easy to manage right using Docker, but अगर cluster of nodes हैं और उनमें right multiple right containers run हो रहे हैं, तो उनको मैनेज करना इतना आसान नहीं है. इसलिए हमें कंटेनर मैनेजमेंट प्लेटफॉर्म की जरूरत पड़ती है. Swarm is not that capable, and that is where right I want to point you to कि क्या differences हैं उनके बीच में, ठीक है? So that would also be right there. Okay guys, then I will be closing. Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Deep. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, sure, I will upload today, maybe right in some time or by evening. Okay. it depends, right? How basically it converts. Sometime, right? It takes a lot of time with some errors. In my case, generally. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.